another Faith and Life podcast where we talk about the intersection between faith and life. And this is Greg, and my name is Mike.
Welcome. You know, I almost just jumped in right off the bat to be like, welcome to the Faith and Life podcast. My name's Greg, and I'm hosting alongside with Mike.
Yeah.
You always intro it. And I'm like, and it's not a bad thing. I'm just like, I'm going to mess with him. And I didn't, and I should have. And you would have been like, wait, what are you doing?
Let's take this down a notch.
Take it down a notch? Wait, me introing is taking the podcast down a notch, Mike? Wow.
Speaking of take it down a notch, let's talk about the upcoming NFL season when the Browns will take everything down a notch or 3 or 4.
Yeah. Do we have any good, funny, debatable questions?
Today?
Yeah.
Besides the NFL?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have one. I didn't bring anything.
I do.
Okay, go for it.
We've debated things like hot dog as a sandwich. Yes. We've debated things like potatoes as replacement for eggs for Easter egg hunting.
Yes.
Does a straw have 1 hole or 2 holes? Now, I have one for you.
Yeah.
Is cereal a soup?
Is cereal a soup?
Is cereal a soup?
No.
Why not? What qualifies as soup? Give me a definition of a soup.
A soup comes in a can, number 1. I've never seen any cereal in a can.
Oh, okay. I don't know about you guys, but you guys go to a restaurant and you go, what's your soup of the day? I hope it came in a can. So your definition is something that most people don't eat off of.
You don't know it doesn't come out of the can in the back in the kitchen.
I feel it's safe to say if you go to a fancier restaurant, it did not come from a can. They made it.
All right. Okay.
So go ahead, can. Your can. This is how you're going to prove your point.
All right. So it comes from a can.
Okay.
It has liquid.
Check.
Is a defining quality of that soup. It has a liquidification. Liquidification? Yeah. That's what's going to define this soup. Because I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay, no, and you're not. Yeah, I've thought about it a little bit because y'all give me grief in staff because I am on the camp that I don't put milk on my cereal.
You don't put milk on your cereal.
See, you already forgotten. You guys give me grief about this. I don't put milk on my cereal.
Okay.
I don't like soggy foods. I don't want my cereal I don't want it to be milkified. I want my cereal the way it is. So in my case, it would not be a soup. But people, whenever I say though, I don't put milk on my cereal, that's the reaction I get. Like, what? You have to have milk with your cereal. Okay? So the one element that you are saying has to be a part of a soup is the liquid aspect of it. You're saying you can't have cereal without that liquid aspect of it. You have to have that. So you have to have milk.
I didn't say that.
But you're heavily leaning towards that camp.
Yeah, it's not a soup. But cereal must have a liquid component to it.
Which would then make it a soup because it would have ingredients and liquid ingredients. And boom, voila, you get a soup.
Okay. I don't know what to say to that.
That's all. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna start calling cereal a soup. I haven't had cereal for a long time.
Well, we haven't. My kids have cereal with milk all the time.
Here's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
With this cereal as a soup, grape nuts. Have you ever had grape nuts?
No.
Yeah, you don't like soggy stuff. No. But grape nuts.
I'm also under 40 at this time of this recording, so I have also never had grape nuts.
It's true. You can go to Kroger. I just saw grape nuts at Kroger, the grocery store, recently. So they still sell it. So somebody still eats it.
Yeah.
My grandparents.
My grandparents who have their Buckeye Gold Card.
But grape nuts, you put milk in there. Those grape nuts, which are not nuts, and they're not grapes. I don't know what they are. It's gravel. They will soak up the milk. It becomes soggy. And edible then. So that's not soup. That's a gravel that's a mush, I think.
Oh,
keep you regular, that's for sure.
I have not had it, no, and I don't plan to. You're not selling me on the grape nuts.
You cannot eat grape nuts without liquid. It'll break your teeth.
I don't think I need to eat it with or without. It doesn't sound good either way.
On that note, today we're going to talk about a day in the life of a pastor.
First thing Mike does every morning is gets a bowl of grape nuts.
Bowl of grape nuts.
We started your day in the life of a pastor.
Exactly. By the way, I have.
I do feel bad, like if someone does like grape nuts, like
Yeah, I don't mind grape nuts.
If you like it, to each their own. I've never had it, so who am I to knock it?
I have had it, and there have been seasons in my life that I've eaten grape nuts on a regular basis. The last few years have not been that season.
Yeah,
I don't eat cereal.
I say all this. If you are an avid grape nut lover, cereal, and like you're really offended by this podcast, send all your emails to mike@stlukeColumbus.com. He will address all your concerns.
Yeah, exactly, and I'll pray for you as well. But one of the things that when I was first called to be a pastor, literally God, that's a different story. It's for a different podcast. Maybe we've covered it. Like God said, I want you to go to seminary to become a pastor. Mm. I literally did not know what pastors did besides what I saw on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And that was still a mystery until
the other day. Yes.
Till the other day.
He figured it out, gang.
I still don't know what I do. No, that's funny. No, but it was like up until the first couple of years of seminary, I was like, I'm studying this, but I don't know what the daily practice. What's it look like on a daily basis? What does a pastor do? Then I obviously figured it out. I figured it out during seminary as well, but I think there are other people who had that same question. Like, what do you do on a Wednesday?
Oh, it is. As soon as whenever someone asks me what my job is, I'm like, oh, I'm a youth pastor. And they're like, oh, cool. What do you do? I'm like, oh, I work with the students. Okay, what do you do during the week is the third question almost every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Exactly. And it's a good question. It is a really good question.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say, like, what we do.
Right. I mean, you golf on Tuesdays. You grocery shop on Wednesday.
Every day. I roll out of bed at 11 a.m. Yeah, exactly. That's right. No. Yeah. I did have a person, a high school senior, about 10 years ago, shadow me for a couple days. He was curious about what I did. He was also for a class assignment. No, he did. It was all week. He shadowed me. And it was interesting to kind of talk to him about and have him go to literally from everything I did.
Yeah.
And I did that during seminary as well. The guy ended up being my internship supervisor. He invited me to spend 24 hours with him. Or not 24 hours, but from the beginning of his day to the end of his day. Okay. And I remember thinking, it's a long day. He goes, we're starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. And we have an evening meeting. And so you're just going to hang out with me the rest of the whole day. And it was so instructive to think, oh, this is what you do. Or at least this is what a portion of what you do. And, and every day is different. This is what my experience has been. There are some predictable things within a week that you just, like for us, staff meetings, a predictable thing.
Recording the
podcast. But every month has its own predictability with certain meetings that evening meetings that I go to and that we're part of. But then each day there's variations within that day. It could be a hospital visit. It could be a conversation with somebody it's set up that day or that's cut up the week before. A pastoral care conversation. And those conversations are various and sundry topics. It is very diverse.
Yeah.
What a pastor does.
It really is, and I think it's interesting too because I think where the frustration, I don't even want to say frustration. I think where like the curiosity for people is all the time is it's hard to give a clear-cut, definitive answer of what your week looks like because there are so many elements that, like you said, like. You might be like, well, Tuesdays I do this, but then Monday night you got a phone call from someone that said, I need you to come to a hospital visit Tuesday. Yeah. So that now has changed this. And then you've then found out that, oh, there's a meeting that got scheduled because there's so many little tweaks that it's not what something people usually see, right? It's not you're in the office from 9 to 4 and then you go home.
Right.
It is, sometimes you're in the office, sometimes I remember when I first got to St. Luke back in 2007, and my office was up in the youth room. And I got to church every day in the summer at 9 a.m. and I was there till 4 p.m. because I was like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, and they need to see that I'm here from 9 to 4 every day. And then it was until Steve sat me down at one point. I was like, what do you do up in your office? Like, try to figure out what I need to do.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to go out, go to Panera Bread where the students are at, have lunch there so you can see them as they're walking by. You need to go to the school afterwards, where they're doing this. And that was really informative for me in the beginning of how much, we kind of hit on it. A big part of our jobs are contact work, of having those relationships with people, because I think there's an aspect of being a pastor or in a pastoral role where teaching is a big element of that role. But you're not just a teaching pastor where you show up, you write a sermon, you show up on Sunday morning and preach, and then you're done. There are teaching pastors that do that, and that's perfectly fine. But to be a pastor in a pastoral role, there's very much about the relational aspect of people, like living life with people, being in those counseling meetings, doing those sessions, but having those relationships. So building that contact work for me, with student ministry has been a big part, and it's an interesting dynamic because sometimes it's going to a football game, not getting to see the athlete who's playing football, but I'm in the stands talking to their parents the whole game, right? And so I'm doing contact work with a parent that way or something like that, and it's funny because people are like, oh, you went to a football game for part of your job. It's like, well, yes, because it's building relationships and stuff as well. And then what you do with that contact work. So it is so varied and so different of, there are times where, and it depends on what you said, the season right now. Like, now the school year's starting up. I know I got this thing on Tuesday morning, and then I have a podcast Tuesday after that. And then on Wednesdays, I have the staff meeting. And then I have meeting with the ELCA pastors on Wednesday. And then Thursday mornings, I have the meeting with the Gehenna youth pastors. And then I'm doing pre-marriage counseling for a wedding in October and this. And so it always is interchanging, and your week to week to week to week is different. But I think there's elements that are key. And I think that's what people, the most helpful thing for me, I understood, in the life of, working in a pastoral role is it's going to always look different, but there's always going to be themes and elements the same. You're going to have your time where you're writing. You're going to be times where you're working on, for you, for a Sunday sermon, for me, for a Sunday morning, message with the students up, or for a Bible study or things like that. You're always going to have a teaching element that you have. You're always going to have contact work element, right? You're always going to have administrative elements, whether that's going to a council meeting, whether it's, filing paperwork for the church and stuff. Like there's themes throughout the week that this is an administrative day. This is a contact work day. This is a teaching day. I think that almost is like there's days, and what that day looks like can change.
Yeah, each day might be heavy in one particular area, but then it's like each day has its own kind of pie, and there might be bigger slices of that pie for administrative work this day, or the next day might be highly relational work, contact work. You're right, but that's every day has that same pie. It's just shaped differently each day. And it also depends on the size of the church. Like when I first began, I was pastor of 2 tiny churches, very, very small churches, and the contact work was probably the primary thing. The administrative work for those 2 churches was not as heavy, and it was generally shared with other volunteers. I was the only pastor. But then you get to a size of a church like us, or the previous church I was at, which are much bigger, programmatic. So you have much more programmatic responsibilities and more administrative responsibilities. And the contact work, the relational work is vitally important, but is a smaller piece of the pie with the other pieces. And then you get to then you're in the role of lead pastor. It's a whole different world unto itself. Some people will say, well, you're like the CEO of a company. Yes, but no, because I've never been a CEO of a company.
Guys, I'm talking with the CEO right now.
Exactly.
What?
And, it's like saying that
God's our CEO, okay?
God exactly. Yeah. But it's like saying that church is a business. Yeah. Well, church is not a business. It has business behaviors.
Elements. Business
it's got elements, and that's like the same thing with being a pastor. Like the lead pastor is kind of like a CEO, but really not, because I'm not ultimately in charge. Like there's in all those things, there's a lot of reasons why there's exceptions to that statement. But I mean, so being a lead pastor, being an associate pastor is much different role than a lead pastor, being a student pastor, and so it also depend on that role of what those responsibilities are on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
Really, it's very
Yeah, and it does change with the size of the churches, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
because there are people who are in a similar position in my role that are part time, and
Yep.
what does that look like? Or volunteer roles of being a student pastor and stuff like this. So that plays into where your church is at and what the expectations are. But it's also but that was very important for me to get into a rhythm early on. That I always had. I try to every couple months kind of do a schedule check for me of like, what is my schedule like in this season that I'm in? Like, okay, I know. And so I can look then, I'm like, ooh, I'm in a season right now where I'm very much heavy on the teaching and administrative side, but my contact side is very minimal. And so like, I have to then adjust my calendar for that so I can fit that. So I think it is also, it's important as fluid as, and as our jobs are of like where it can just go from one thing to the other and it doesn't look the exact same each week, that'd be important to have checkpoints to say, okay, am I still hitting what needs to be hit though and
Yep.
done? Have I reached out to someone, are we staying up to date on who's in the hospital, who isn't, and contact like that, and who have we not seen at church lately? Do we need to make a phone call or stuff?
Right, exactly. And I think there's for a pastor, and like in the Lutheran church, the ordained leadership of the church, the pastors, we take in our ordination vows that in the office of pastor, we are pastors of word and sacrament. What doesn't change of the size of the church, regardless of the size of the church, in the Lutheran church, a pastor is a pastor in the sense that the pastor is the responsible one to administer the sacraments rightly and to preach the word and preach and teach the word. In a very small, and that is the kernel of what pastors do, ordained pastors in the Lutheran church. So we can't take that away from any pastor. Those are primary, and all these other things are really important. But the preaching and teaching, administering the sacraments, that's a unique to the ordained role of a pastor in the Lutheran church. I think what's challenging though sometimes as a pastor is you might go to a hospital visit, a very serious illness, intense situation, and then you get in your car and you got to shift gears sometimes almost immediately to I got to go plan for this retreat, or I have this meeting to go to, and it's like vastly different feel, vastly different intensity, and sometimes it can be difficult to kind of to continue to shift gears, especially if it's a lot every day or every week. Those shifting of gears of the intensity levels can really be draining on a pastor. That's what I found.
Yeah. Well, and then there's aspects too of our jobs where you have to, it's like be on, right? Like you have to be welcoming, you have to be encouraging. Like you almost like you can walk away from having a very intense moment from, doing a hospital visit with, people that are grieving and stuff like this. And then like, it's hard, you're not expected to bring that with you then when you go to another meeting with people who aren't associated with that situation, because otherwise they're like, oh, well, this pastor's, so there's a lot of stuff like that too, that you have to like you said, the mental shifting of gears of, okay, I know what I need to be as a pastor for this person in that setting. I'm now in a different setting. I need to be a different, mindset for this person because their needs are different. You're always addressing different needs. And I think that's something that it's a special, unique thing to pastors too. Of like, you have to be able to shift and recognize what needs are, what are needed in that moment with the people that you're with and ministering to in that time.
Right. So I think there's a lot of unseen work and a lot of unseen things happening with people in our role. It's just, I'm just going to speak from our perspective, because this is what we do. Every role in society has an unseen aspect to it, right? So
Yep.
I don't want to take that away. I'm not saying that we're unique that way. But what people forget about is that there's a lot of unseen work of planning, preparing, that people, sometimes it takes hours upon hours to plan and prepare for something, a retreat, a class, and so on. And so it's not, sometimes if we're not here in the church office doing something and people to see, maybe we're at home or at a coffee shop or elsewhere doing some of that unseen work that's getting done. It's just not being done in a visible way, in that way. And there's a lot, that's just one example of unseen work that is vitally important that feeds into the public work that a pastor does.
And sometimes when you have the unseen work, if you don't know what goes into it, that's difficult, right? Like I remember during COVID times, we were not in person worship.
Yep.
And at one point, I was talking with Steve and we were just chatting about what my day-to-day stuff is. And at one point I'm like, I spend 2 days editing the worship service for Sunday morning.
Yep.
Whether between recording it at all the locations, and here, and then editing it, I go, it is taking me 2 days worth of time to do this. Cause I'm not a videographer professional. Like I'm learning stuff and learning, but that was a vitally important aspect of our church. And then it was like, oh, but this is taking 2 days. Are there things that we can then trim or eliminate from how we do stuff to make that easier? Because it was the unseen that people didn't realize. There was a process to go through that and to go through and edit and cut down and add lyrics to every single song that was being done and stuff like this. And so there is a lot of that unseen that if you, or even understand I got to edit a podcast. Okay, what does that take you? It depends. Depends on how many mess ups we have and cuts and,
Yep.
So but not knowing too, I think that's why it is helpful to have these conversations, just shine a little bit of light of what's going on so people can see the behind the scenes a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say the last thing can be a challenge for pastors is, and what we rarely talk about is the grief aspect of being a pastor. So, as a pastor officiating a funeral, for example, if I've known this person for years, maybe I've been their pastor for many, many years, I've grown to love and know them, just like everybody in that church has. The pastor is grieving also the loss of that person. But the pastor really can't show that very well because in a memorial service or a funeral, they need to be up front and lead well. And so a lot of people don't see behind the scenes. There is sometimes some hurting within that pastor because they're grieving that loss too.
Yeah.
And that maybe not just be a death, but maybe a family's moved away, or a family, or what happened with COVID is we lost a third of our worshiping attendance.
Yeah.
We're not unique that way. Almost every church in the United States, in the North America, I should say, have experienced that same thing. But there's loss there. Yeah. There's loss of relationships and friendships and seeing people and potential and so many things that definitely has an impact on the inner world of a pastor.
Which is why it's so important for pastors to have pastors too, right? Yeah. To have your people who are going to pour into you and pastor in you. And it's important to have, I mentioned, 2 groups I have, I have the youth pastors in Gahanna, I have the youth pastors of the ELCA church, and how vital those are of those relationships and connections of people that are doing ministry like you, that are in the, in the trenches like you are of whatever is going on, that you can have that ability to share what's going on and you grieve and share your frustrations of stuff that's happened or the difficult conversations you had in a meeting with somebody and to have that because if you don't have your community of people that are going to support you, we all need that mentally. We all need those aspects for mental health and to have people that we can talk with and connect with, because otherwise, if you're isolated, it's never good for you and you're never going to be able to thrive then long term.
Yep.
If you're so isolated with your own and not having an outlet for your emotions and expressions either. So
yeah, absolutely. There's a big burnout rate with pastors. Whether it be student pastors or ordained pastors, whatever that is, whatever pastor role, there's a big burnout potential. And if it's not taken care of in those places like you're saying, find those helpful folks to bounce things off of.
But it is a joy to get to be in these roles though too. Like we
No
didn't
question.
mention. I
Yeah,
was like,
mean,
I want to
yeah.
just say, like,
You
who
just
doesn't
said all
enjoy
these challenges, like, boy, this stinks, really stinks. No,
hug a pastor?
Yeah. Oh no, but you're right. There are a lot of joys, and there are a lot of. I mean, I think over the years I've gone, wow, I get to do this, whatever this is,
Right.
only because of my role, and that's unique and beautiful and life giving.
Yeah.
And I get to know these unique people because of the role that I'm in. I mean, I wouldn't have met this person or that person if it wasn't for my role.
Yeah.
You know, that's the cool part of it. A lot of there's just one aspect of the coolness
Yeah.
of this role. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, good stuff. Well, I'll end it with, well, what do I know? You know, that's always a good way to end a sermon. Well, what do I know?
It's always like it's a classic when someone gives you advice and you're like, I don't know if that was good advice, and so they always are like, you know what, that's just my thoughts, but go ahead, pray about that, you know, like that way then you have a scapegoat of like, did you pray about it? I told you to pray about it at the end. I told you to do this and this, but then I did say to pray about it just in case I gave you bad. So if you don't like our podcast, pray about it.
Just pray about it. Exactly. Thank you, guys.
And enjoy your grape nuts.